I am rolling.
Rolling. I'm going to sync it. 3, 2, 1.
Nice.
Okay, Carlos, so let's talk
Yes, sir.
a little bit. You made the first mention. You graduated and you went on to college. How did you get into college?
You know, it wasn't easy. It was very, very hard. A lot of work study, some scholarships. There were grant programs. If you were to ask my mom when she was alive, and a lot of people asked her, how did Carlos do it? How did he go to college? She had no idea. She had no idea because my parents couldn't provide anything, nothing. They couldn't. They had still had some children at home that they had to work real hard to raise. So I was pretty much on my own. And the beautiful thing about this country, and the reason I thank God every day that I was born and raised in this country, is that the opportunities are there. All you have to do is look for them. The thing is, the opportunities don't come to you. They don't come to your door. You have to go out and knock on doors and ask for help. And people are willing to help you. Uh, Many people, they don't fail. They stop trying. They stop trying. They go to one door and knock, and of course they say no. And that's it. They don't try again. And I explain to young people, don't ever stop trying. Go to the first door, knock, and they say no, go to the second door, keep on trying. If you can't find any doors, create your own door and knock on it. And the beautiful thing about living in this country is the opportunities are there. All you have to do is go out and look for them. And I figured this out a long time ago. So I looked and looked and looked. It wasn't easy. I figured out that in this country, if you want to do something, and it's something that's good, and you're willing to make the sacrifices and willing to work hard as possible, you can do it. When I entered politics, one of the things I decided was people may outspend me. They might have more experience than I do. They have been around more. They have been in office more. But the one thing they could never beat me at was working. I tried to outwork everybody, work harder than everybody. And that's what I've done in my public career, is to work as hard as I can for the public, to try to serve the public. And that's what I've been trying to do. But it's not easy. It's simple, but not easy. And I tell students when I talk to them, look, if you want to do something, it's good, and you're willing to make the sacrifice, you can do it. Now, along the way, there's many, many, many people who are going to tell you, you can't do it. You can't do it. There's many detractors. And it's intentional. They try to get you off the track. They try to distract you and get you to not achieve your goals. There's people going to tell you can't do it for this reason, for this reason, for this reason, for this reason. And some of them are good reasons. But if you want to do it and you want to make the sacrifices necessary, it can be done. And I'm a living example. And I don't say this because I'm smarter than anybody. I'm brighter than everybody. I've had more money than anybody. No. I'm normal. I'm a normal human being. I just saw something that I thought I could do. I knew I could do it, and I was willing to make the sacrifices, and I did it. And here I am.
And here you are. And when I first met you, the year was 1978. I had just finished college. I just started working for Channel 6, and you were a county attorney.
No, I was county attorney in the early 80s. I was an assistant county attorney.
There you go.
I was an assistant county attorney, a prosecutor, and in 1984 is when I got into politics. Mike Westergren was a county attorney back then, and I was an assistant to Mike Westergren. And in 1984, Mike said he was going to run for district judge. So it opened up the position, and I decided I had worked real close with Mike Westergren, and I had decided I can do this, and it's something I could do, and I can probably get elected. Of course, that was a lot of idealism in a young lawyer, but I thought I could do it, and I was willing to make the sacrifices and do whatever needed to be done. So I announced for it, I filed for it, and 3 other people announced for it. So the campaign was difficult. It was long back then, and I didn't have any money. I think I spent $4,000 on the first campaign, and I was outspent by a lot. by
And you
the
won.
And I won. I won the first time. I was 29 years old, and I became county attorney at the age of 29. And I was county attorney, advising commissioners court, advising the whole county, and also doing misdemeanor prosecutions. Back then, the county attorney was in charge of misdemeanor prosecutions. So back then, the primary cases were DWI cases and some gang-related cases. So that's what I spent my time doing. But my primary first duty as county attorney was to advise commissioners court, represent the county in civil lawsuits that are filed. And I don't know if you remember, but when I was county attorney, I filed a lawsuit against the state of Texas when the state of Texas would not remove prisoners from Nueces County Jail and from all jails throughout the state, from all county jails. The way it's supposed to work by state law is when somebody is convicted of a felony and is sentenced to prison, the state is supposed to remove them and take them to prison and pay for them. That wasn't happening. And the population was growing and growing, and it became to where it was a serious problem. It was overpopulated. We didn't have a jail that we could use anymore. So we negotiated with the state for several months, and they wouldn't do anything. So it ended up that I filed a lawsuit against the state of Texas. It was just Nueces County versus Texas Department of Corrections. And at the first hearing we had where they tried to get the case dismissed, the judge denied the motion to dismiss, and we had 13 other counties interested in joining us after they saw that the lawsuit was going somewhere. So I allowed them, and we had one lawyer represent 13 counties that joined the lawsuit, and we tried that case in Austin for 3 weeks. There was a trial. It was myself and the lawyer, Ann Snell, representing the other counties. And the judge ruled in our favor, ruled against the state. We won and ordered the state to pay the 13 counties and us $100 million. $100 million verdict. And this is when I was like in my early 30s. I was a county attorney. And the part of the money that Nueces County got from the $100 million was like $13 million. And using that, the county was able to build the existing jail that we have now. And the state was ordered to pay that money, was ordered to build other prisons, was ordered to do many, many different things in the lawsuit itself. So that was the first of many cases that I was going to be involved in. As county attorney, I was county attorney for 8 years. And then after 8 years, I had several police officers who were involved in the cases we were prosecuting as county attorney who came in and asked me, will you run for district attorney? So in 1992, after 8 years as county attorney, I ran for district attorney. One other thing is county attorney, I was the first Hispanic to ever occupy that position. If you go to the county attorney's office, you'll see on the wall the pictures of the county attorneys, and I'm the first brown face on the wall. And I'll tell you, anytime you are the first person of a different race or whatever to occupy a position, there's an extra pressure on you because everybody's watching, everybody's looking for the first mistake so that they can point and say, you see, that's why we don't allow them to do something. So you have to be very careful. You have to be know what you're doing, and you have to actually work harder than everybody else to stay in that position. And I was very lucky. By the grace of God, I was there for 8 years and then ran for district attorney.
And you won.
When I was running for district attorney, there were 3 other opponents also, and I was able to convince the voters to elect me, and I was elected in 1992 as the first Hispanic district attorney. There had never been a Hispanic district attorney in this county before, in the history of the county. And of course, everybody's watching. And I started running the DA's office, pretty much like I had been running the county attorney's office. One thing I have to say is I've had some excellent co-workers in both the county attorney's office and the district attorney's office. I was very fortunate to be able to work with some of the best lawyers in Nueces County who were working with me at the county attorney's office and at the district attorney's office. Some excellent prosecutors who, after they worked for me or with me in the county attorney and district attorney, went on to higher positions. A lot of the judges, most of the judges in Nueces County worked for me at one time or another, and they will tell you. There was a time when almost every single judge in Nueces County had worked in my office and had started their career there. So I've had the good fortune, and I think that's one of the best things that I had in my career is the opportunity to work with some excellent lawyers. I learned a lot from them. My job, I've always said, I'm trying to hire people who are smarter than I am. My job is to point in the direction I want to go. This is where we want to take the office, and then get out of the way and let the lawyers take over the assistants, and they know what to do. They know how to do it. So I was district attorney for 17 years, but about 2 years into my first term, I started in January 1st of 93. And in 1995, March 31st of 1995, I had the first major test of my career, and that was the unfortunate murder of the singer Selena. That happened while I was district attorney on March 31st in 1995, and that is the most high-profile, most publicized case in the history of this state. It's been publicized all over the world. I've been interviewed by people from all over the world, literally from all over the world. They've come to Corpus Christi and interviewed me from all parts of the United States, from England, from Spain, from France, from Japan, from Australia, and of course all parts of Mexico and South America. They've all come and interviewed me. It has received publicity and from all over the world. Still, even now, 28 years later, on about 2 weeks before March 31st, I still get calls and requests for interviews from different parts of the world still. One of the mistakes that I made, not mistakes, miscalculations, is when it was all happening, there was so much attention, so much pressure, so much media. I thought to myself, looking at everything, all this is going to disappear in 5 years and people are not going to remember. I was wrong. Even now, wherever we are, we travel all over Mexico, my wife and I, and wherever we are, when we tell them where we're from, the first name they come up with is Selena. Selena. Everybody says Selena. That's what everybody remembers. But I tried that case in Houston. We tried it. I say but I had two very capable assistants that helped me. And we tried that case in Houston for 3 weeks also. And we were able to get justice for Selena.
Tell me something about this case, though. The notoriety aside, this was a horrific murder of which you've covered so many throughout your career as a district attorney. But this one here, because of the notoriety, the complexity, was it more or less than the preceding trials, murder trials that you had to try yourself as a district attorney? Was this I hate to say the term slam dunk, but this was a no-brainer?
From a technical standpoint, it wasn't that difficult a case to prove. We had actual statement from Yolanda Saldivar signed where she admitted to having shot Selena. What made it difficult was a couple of things. First of all, we had what I consider a brilliant defense attorney on the other side, Doug Tinker. He had been just declared to be the criminal defense attorney of the year that same year, and he was known all over the country as a very, very good defense attorney, and I'll tell you, he was very, very good at what he did. That made it difficult. But also what made it even more difficult was the pressure, the public pressure on our office and on myself. There is no way that I can convey to you or make people understand the pressure unless you're right in the seat that I was and you can actually feel it. You can't, there's no way to explain to you how much pressure it is with people looking over your shoulder. And this was just the start of the internet era when people are starting to try cases all over the world. It was the same year of the O.J. Simpson case, and if you remember, O.J. Simpson received publicity all over the world. Well, the verdict in O.J. Simpson came in the week before we started trying this case in Houston. All the media that was in O.J. Simpson went to Houston to see this case, so we were trying this case not just to the 12 people on the jury. We were trying this case to people all over the world, and people were calling in, and there was a lot of pressure, and people wanted justice and wanted justice and wanted justice, and they were really angry. I mean, I saw it every day outside of the courthouse there in Houston, how angry people were, and I understood. If there was a verdict like the one in O.J., if there was a verdict of not guilty, an acquittal, all that anger would not go away. It would be turned on me. I understood that. I figured, and that's the reason I wanted to be right in the middle of it, because I don't want the prosecutors, the assistant district attorneys who are handling the case, I don't want them to be the aim of or the focus of this intense anger that was in the community. Fortunately, things worked out, and we were able to secure a good verdict, both on the guilt, innocence. She was convicted and found guilty, and on the punishment, she got the maximum, which was life in prison. And she's still in prison, so.
You and I have had many candid conversations about her life sentence that is, what is 30 years? Is that
It's
correct?
got to be 30 years, 30 calendar years before she's eligible to apply for parole. This is the way it works. It is a life sentence. She's sentenced to life in prison. But the way the law was worded back then is she has to serve a minimum of 30 years, calendar years, 30 years before she can ask for parole. Doesn't mean she's entitled to it. She's got to convince the parole board that she's entitled to it. And if she does certain things, and some people are paroled, but if there's a lot of people complaining and there's a lot of protest and a lot of objections, all that's taken into consideration in making a decision. So I'm figuring that just the way I've seen things, there's probably going to be a lot of people who are going to either appear or file objections or file protests, or there's going to be a lot of people against it. So
You think she'll ever get out?
eventually I think she will, but I don't think she'll get out the first time she's eligible. I just don't see that happening, although I've been surprised before. But it's amazing how fast the time flew by. You never thought you'd be in this position where you're getting this close. April 1st of 2025, just about 2 years from now, almost 2 years from now, she'll be eligible because she'll have been in prison for 30 years.
You wrote a book about this case, right?
Yes, Justice for Selena, the state versus Yolanda Saldivar. I wrote it several years ago.
How did it do?
On the internet, it's doing well, or it's still doing well. Still, people are buying it. So a lot of people don't know about it. Don't know about the fact that if the book is written by somebody outside looking in, is different than from somebody inside. I was actually trying the case. I was actually forming the strategy behind the case. I was actually talking to the witnesses behind the case. So my book is based on what the witnesses told us, what they testified to, and what was going on inside our brain and what we were talking about. So it's the inside story of the trial and the prosecution of Yolanda Saldivar. So that's what it's based on, and it's been doing well. Still people discover it, and I still get letters every once in a while saying, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. It was amazing to find this out, because a lot of the things that that people think they know are based on rumors and gossip and other things like that, which is sometimes more salacious, more newsworthy, although it's not true. I can tell them the truth, and they say, no, no, no. I heard somewhere that there was this, this, and this, and I said, no, that's not true. This is the truth. This is what the witnesses said. This is what the evidence showed. We had evidence. We didn't have hearsay. We didn't have any of this. We had actual evidence.
The gun that was used, you played a big role in its disposal.
Almost every single thing in the case is interesting. The history of the gun was interesting. We tried the case in Houston. It was transferred on change of venue. We offered everything into evidence. All the evidence was offered, including the gun and the ring that Selena was wearing was offered into evidence. When the case ended and we did the appeal, it was done in Houston. After everything was done, the case is over. That's it. All appeals are over. So we filed a motion to transfer all the evidence, return it to the district clerk here in Nueces County. And they returned every single piece of evidence except two. Two pieces of evidence were missing. The ring and the gun. Both of them nowhere to be found. So the district attorney's office in Harris County in Houston started an investigation to try to determine where they are. During the investigation, I got a call from the court reporter who was taking down the transcript of the trial. And she tells me that she had found the two items in her garage in a box that had been taken. When she resigned from the court, they had boxed up a bunch of stuff, and one of the boxes had the gun and the ring. So I asked her to please turn it over to the investigator. And she did, and they were eventually returned to Nueces County. The ring was returned to Mr. Quintanilla because it's Selena's ring, so he got it. The gun itself, there were many people who were interested in it, a lot of people offering a lot of money to buy the gun. There was a hearing before Judge Longoria. Jose Longoria had a hearing to determine disposition of the gun, and he ordered that the gun be destroyed and being cut into many little pieces, and the pieces thrown into the bay. And that's what happened. We all witnessed it. We went to a local welding shop where the gun was cut into small little pieces with a saw, and then the pieces were taken by Sheriff Larry Olivares in the bay in a boat, and in front of the media. There was another boat with the media. He threw the little pieces of the gun into the bay, and that's the end of the gun.
And the end of the story that still continues to be told, thanks to folks who were there, who can account for every moment of the truth, to the media for the accountability of the videos that were taken as legitimate reports, right?
That's exactly right.
But there were many other cases, Carlos, that you tried as the district attorney, high-profile cases, many of them death sentence cases?
Several death sentence cases.
Tell me about some of those.
One of the most serious death penalty cases was the Martin Gurule case that Mark Skirka and myself tried back then when I was district attorney. And he was charged with killing two people at the UNI restaurant. And during the commission of the offense, he pulled the gun and shot the owner and shot one of the workers there. And we tried him, and he was convicted, and he was sentenced to death. Well, as he's leaving the courtroom, he shuffles by our counsel table where we're sitting, and he looks me straight in the face, straight in the eyes. He said, "I'll see you later." And I'm thinking to myself, and when he says that, it runs chills down my spine the way he says it. But I'm thinking to myself, he's going to death row. Who escaped from death row? Nobody's ever escaped from death row. About 2 years later, seriously, about 2 years later, I'm driving to Sears to get my car worked on, and it comes on the radio that the first person to ever escape from death row escaped yesterday. And then they said it, Martin Gurule escaped from death row. That is the guy who said, "I'll see you later." So I drive back to my house, And when I get there, I didn't have a cell phone. This was before cell phones. And when I get there, the phone's ringing, and it's Mark Skirka. He says, "Have the police talked to you?" And I said, "No, but have you heard about Martin Guru?" He said, "They're looking for you. They want to have some protection for you, and they've got some people protecting me." So they finally get a hold of me. I had a police car parked in front of my house for a whole week because they couldn't find him. A week later, they give me a call and said, "We found Martin Garuli." Apparently, he had jumped in a river and had drowned. After he escaped, he was trying to cross the river, and he drowned, and a fisherman had found his body. So I told the DPS who had called me, I said, "Are you sure it's Martin Garuli?" And they said, "Yes." I said, "Bring me a picture of him and bring me his fingerprints." And they said, "Yes, sir." So they brought me a picture. But you couldn't tell. He was so bloated with the water and everything. His face was huge and dark color. You couldn't tell it was him. But the fingerprints were still there. So I took the fingerprints to my trusted fingerprint examiner at the jail. And I said, "Can you compare these and see who it is?" So he did. He compared them. And he came back and said, this is Martin Garuli. And that was probably the most serious capital murder death case that I tried. There were a couple others, but that was probably the most serious. There was one case involving intoxication manslaughter where we changed the law. It was also an interesting case.
Tell me about that one.
That was the Frank Flores Cuellar case. Frank Flores Cuellar was driving on Greenwood, and he had been at a bar, and he was highly intoxicated. And in the opposite direction on Greenwood, there was a lady driving a car. They had gone to buy something for her daughter, and it was the lady and her mom and grandmother and her other daughter. And she was driving, and Frank Flores Cuellar crossed over and hit the car head on. The lady who was driving was eight and a half months pregnant with a little baby, and the steering wheel hit her right in the stomach. They took her to the hospital, and they delivered little baby Crystal. And baby Crystal lived for about 70 hours. They tried everything, but couldn't save her. So she died after she had been born. So they brought the case to our office, and I looked at it, and I said, let's take it to the grand jury for intoxication, a manslaughter on the child. And the law back then said that a manslaughter, intoxication manslaughter, if a person was driving while intoxicated and was involved in an accident resulting in the death of another, it was manslaughter. The problem was another was defined as a person who has been born and is alive, period. So everybody in the office, every single person, you can't try this case, you can't bring it to a grand jury because the child wasn't alive. But my point was, look at the definition. A person who has been born and is alive, period. Is alive when? That's my question. When? Is alive when? And they said, well, when the accident happened. If that's what they meant, they would have said when the accident occurred or when the incident occurred. If that's what they meant. But they left it there. What they meant was at the time of death, which causes the death of a person who has been born and is alive. At the time of death, that's why they put death in there. And they said, no. So I took it to the grand jury, and they indicted him. I took it to trial, and he was convicted and sentenced to prison. And it went up on appeal, and the Court of Appeals affirmed it. They said that's what they meant. Well, based on that case, the legislature eventually, about 2 sessions later, changed the definition to where now the definition of another includes a person from the time of conception. So the protection of the criminal law now extends into the uterus to protect the unborn child. That's how laws change. That's how you make laws change to be more in tune with the actual circumstances. But that was a case that was very difficult when it comes to actual prosecution and strategy and things like that. But eventually they changed the law, the definition of another. It now includes an unborn child at any stage of gestation from the time of conception.
That's amazing. I mean.
Then
you
there's
have to-
more. There's more,
so
more,
many
more
other
cases that.
So many that I personally was able to sit through and watch you in action. And yet, here we are, you now go from district attorney to city attorney.
City attorney.
How did that happen?
I was entering my 17th year as district attorney, and the city manager, Angel Escobar, came to talk to me and asked me, will you consider coming over to the city? And I said, Angel, I have a commitment here, and I want to finish out this term, and it'll be my last term, and maybe then. He said, we need you right now. We need you right now. Well, he talked to me for about 3 months, and finally I said, okay, I'll go over and help you. And I retired from the DA's office and went over to the city and started as city attorney. The first day I got to the city attorney's office, there were 3 lawsuits on my desk involving the demolition of the Memorial Coliseum. And Angel came in personally and said, we want to do this. We want to demolish the Coliseum, and we've been trying to do this for 2 years, and we haven't been able to. Do you think you can handle these cases? So I said, I can handle them, but let's talk about it. So we talked, and I said, are you sure you want to do this? And he said, yes, we want to do this. Are there any plans in place? Or he said, no, we want to just demolish the Coliseum. I said, well, I'm going to get it done, but don't come back and say you want to stop it or anything. Once it gets done, it gets done. And he said, no, we want to get it done. So 2 of the lawsuits were in Austin. I went to Austin, got those dismissed, transferred over here, and in Nueces County, we tried one of the lawsuits where the court ruled against the city, but I took it up on appeal and got the Court of Appeals to reverse it, and got finally the demolition started in Rio, for real, and unfortunately, a lot of people were not happy with it, and I saw this coming. I saw it. I don't think we should be doing this, but that was the decision that the council had made, so we went ahead with it.
In hindsight, how do you feel about it?
I was never in favor of it. I thought that some other things could have been done. It was a beautiful building. It was a historic building. It was an iconic building. It was the face of Corpus Christi Bayfront, and there were many things that could have been done. In fact, there were some plans that were developed that were beautiful plans to keep the building in place with some changes that were, and it wouldn't have cost a whole lot of money where it would have been prohibited. So, but no, this is what the council wanted. This is what they wanted to do, and I still to this day I have no idea why they wanted to demolish the Coliseum, but that's what they wanted to do. That was my job. So, and then there were some other challenges. That was the first. As soon as I got there, the first big case that was on my desk was the demolition of the Coliseum, and it got a lot of people angry. But people who get angry at me for doing my job, doing it well, I can take that. If they were angry for some other reason, that I had done something wrong or bad, I don't know if I could live with myself. But this is what I was hired for.
And then on to your term as a district judge.
Judge. I ran for judge and was elected, and there was one thing about being a judge. I had already been in almost every single position in front of the bench, as a lawyer, as a defense attorney, as a prosecutor, as a plaintiff's lawyer, as a defense lawyer. I told people, look, there's probably not very much that can come in front of me that I haven't already seen or that I haven't already done myself. So that experience is valuable, is very valuable, I think. I've always believed that the person with the most experience in the courtroom should be the judge. Should not be surprised by anything. So when I started on the bench, there was very, very few things that came before me that I hadn't seen before. The few things that I've never seen before is because of the change in the law. Things like same-sex divorce that I had never seen before, but it's handled in the same manner. But most of the things the very few things that I had never seen before, it's pretty much handled the same as any. There's no differences.
And then you ran for re-election for a second term, and it didn't happen.
Right.
In an atmosphere today that has changed, the complexity of an election overall, you're talking a transformation of Nueces County from what it once was when you first.
It's completely different than it is. And I tell people, look, this is politics. That's the way it works. I want people to know I lost this last election. I lost it fair and square. There was no massive voter fraud that caused me to lose. There was not, the election was run very professionally, very well by the clerk's office. So I'm not saying that there was a lot of fraud and that I won actually. That I'm no. In fact, I think that the people who do that, who only say that there's fraud or that something's gone wrong, is only when they lose. They're hurting the very basis upon which this country is built on. A democracy can only function when the people are allowed to vote and allowed to exercise the right to vote freely. And when you have people attacking that system of government, you're in very serious situation. There are very serious circumstances that may cause the eventual downfall of this country. This country is based on people being honest, people exercising their right, people accepting the results of a free election and fair election. And that's what has me worried. I see people not doing that in some cases, and when they do that, it not only hurts our system, but it also hurts a legitimate complaint. If somebody has a legitimate complaint, I mean, you can actually have evidence and can prove it in court, and you have a complaint, that case can be hurt by people who don't have anything. They just say, there's massive fraud. I know there's massive fraud because I lost. I don't have any proof of it. I don't need any proof. I already know because I lost. People who do that are hurting our system, and they shouldn't do that. Look, I lost this election. I lost it myself, and the reason I lost it is because I was unable to convince my supporters who supported me in the past how important it is for them to vote. I was unable to do that. If I had done that, I think I would have won, but I failed to do that, so I lost. And the good thing is I can find something else to do, so I'm gonna do something else.
And that's the sad part, because one-term judges, district court judges, cannot come back and be
Visiting
judges.
Right,
So
exactly. You have to
how
have
do you
at least
feel
2
about
terms.
that? How do you feel? Were you looking to?
That's what I was wanting to do. You see, when I started my career in public service, I wanted to give back. I still do want to give back to the community. Rudy, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the community. The community raised me up. There were many good people who helped to bring me up and guide me in the right direction. I owe a lot to this community, and I wanted to be in a position where I could help the community. If there is something that I have, some talent that I haven't been able to find out, but if there's something that I have that I can use to help my community and that the community can use to help itself, I want to do that. And I still would like to help the community in whatever way I can. But when you're in a position like that, the only thing I can do is offer my services by running for office and saying, look, I'd like to help if you all want to have me. But when it gets to a point where the public says, no, thank you, okay, there's something else we can do. The thing is, we should get away from this voting along party lines. People don't look at experience anymore. They don't look at anything other than whether it's an R or a D. And in some instances, that's okay. Legislative races, maybe, but when you come to like prosecutors or clerks or judges. Political parties should have nothing to do with it. In fact, those races should be nonpartisan, should be based solely on a person's experience and nothing else, because there really isn't any Republican or Democratic way to judge a case or to be a clerk. There's no difference between how you file a paper from being a Democrat or a Republican. There's no difference. You file the paper in the same way. That's what a clerk does. Or to be a prosecutor. There's no difference. You prosecute the case the same way if you're a competent prosecutor.
But while it's admirable, Carlos, that you say that you want to do more for the community, you have done so much for the community already. Do you still want to continue? Are you looking at perhaps something in the future politically?
Oh, if I don't want to shut any doors. I don't want to rule anything out. Right now, I'm not actively looking for anything. Right now, I'm actually resting a little bit and then going out and help individuals. But if an opportunity comes along, or if the community calls me for something, if I've always believed in my career that you should not go look for an office. The office should come look for you. And that's the way I've always been, is people have always come and said, would you consider running for this? And I'll consider things. I've had a lot of people ask me to consider running for DA again. And I tell them, look, I was DA for 17 years. That part of my life is already back in the past, and I don't want to go there anymore. But if push came to shove, and I saw that there was really a need, and people were really trying to get me, I would consider. Of course, I would consider. I want to help my community. That's what I'm supposed to do. The very first time I tried a case as an assistant county attorney, a young county attorney, I was probably 26 or something like that, real young. The very first time I stood up in a courtroom to represent the people of Nueces County and the people of the state of Texas, I thought to myself, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what God put me on earth for. And since then, I've always been involved in public service one way or another. Always. Even during the times that that I haven't been in an elected office, I've been doing public service also. I do it quietly. But I've always tried to serve the community, tried to serve the public. I owe so much. I owe everything to the community, so that's what I've done.
That's from your side looking out. From those of us who've watched you, I think you are owed a great deal of thanks for all of your service, your civic-minded attitude to our community, and the love for our community that you have. We owe you a great deal of thanks.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. And this is great. This is very good. This is actually history. What you're doing is you're a historian, because this is history. This is historical. And nobody else does it, Rudy. Nobody else does it. I'm glad you're doing this.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be done for us to preserve where we came from. So people, generations from now, will look back and see this, where we were at this time.
It is possible. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure calling you my friend as well.
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.
Perfect. You want to get some cutaways real quick?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to leave this mic on right here so we can continue to do that. But just going to get the cutaways and everything. Okay, so that's good. We did good.